Hello folks, welcome to this series of AWS services, and in this video, today we are going to talk about various developer tools. Now, as many of you may know that AWS is not only a pioneer in field of cloud, it is also one of the pioneer in the field of DevOps. Now, if you don't know what is DevOps ecosystem, then DevOps is basically a culture where the focus is on the faster and continuous software delivery, starting from design phase to coding, building, testing, deploying, and monitoring. You want all these phases to be done continuously in an incremental way and in integrated way. So there are various DevOps tools. For example, there is Git for source code management. There is Jenkins for continuous integration and continuous deployment. You've got Ceph, Puppet, Ansible, etc. for infrastructure automation and automatic provisioning. And there are so many other DevOps tools that makes it possible that the whole software development lifecycle is integrated so that the developer can just focus on their application and all the other process like testing, deploying, monitoring should be as much as possible happen in an automated way. So AWS by itself has created a lot of developer tools using which anyone can integrate his own software development lifecycle. So if you look at the DevOps pipeline, there are various stages. For example, source code management. There is build automation step, then you can do test automation, you can do deployments, and then the monitoring part of it. Now AWS has got various developer tools to automate each of these steps, and in fact it also provides some of the tools which take care of the whole DevOps pipeline. So let's go and look at them one by one. So when you go to AWS services, you find these developer tools. So let me start with the code commit first. We'll come back to code star. So code commit is basically your source code management tool. Now AWS provides you a managed Git host. Underneath it, it is using Git technology. So if your developers are using Git, they can host their code using code commit. So the code commit works the same way that your github.com or your Bitbucket, etc. work. It is providing you safe storage space for your code repositories on AWS cloud. Underneath it, it uses Git. So if you have to go to the dashboard, you just need to create the repository name, say my code repo, create the repository. Now your repository has been created. You can connect this to this repository using Git through any of these connection types, HTTPS or SSH, as you might be aware that Git supports both HTTPS as well as SSH protocol. And depending on your operating system, you can connect to it. Once you create your code repository, you can connect to it in a usual way, how you connect to any remote repository in Git. So basically, this is a basic source code management tool provided by AWS. Then the second tool that we can go through is our code build. So this is actually going to take care of the second stage of the DevOps pipeline, which is your build automation system. So code build helps you automate your build. So it not only manages your build, but also manages your test automation. You can get started. You can configure your project. So to build your application, you need to give here in the code build your project name. You can specify from where it is going to get your application code. You have to specify your environment, like what operating system you are going to use, whether it's going to be normal image or a Docker image. You can specify further settings in your build spec.yaml. And then you can configure a space like S3 bucket where you want to keep this built image. So code build will internally use servers. You can see here the kind of compute types it will use. So this will help you automate your build process and test process. Now code build is a build automation tool. You can use it with Jenkins or any other CI/CD tool. It can very well integrate with various CI/CD tools using plugin systems. So this way AWS helps you manage the build automation as well as test automation step of your DevOps pipeline. Then you've got a service called code deploy. So by using code deploy, you can automate even your deployment phase. Now, similar to code build, code deploy is also very well integrated with various other tools like Jenkins and other CI/CD tools. It will basically automate the process of taking the image, building your deployment environment, for example, launching your EC2 instances, provisioning them, and deploying your application image over those servers. Now you can customize how you want to deploy your application. You can use blue-green deployment, rolling deployment, and you can customize that on how many servers you want to deploy your application. You can do it with 2 instances, or you can also do it for 200 instances. So when you go for automating your deployment process, you need to just provide your application name, then what kind of platform you are going to deploy it on, whether it's going to be a server or it is going to be something like Lambda. You can use various kind of deployment techniques, for example, in-place deployment or blue-green deployment or rolling deployment. Then you can also use auto-scaling groups or load balancers. So basically you can choose what kind of deployment configuration you want. You can customize it. And once your customization is in place, you can just automate this deployment process using code deploy. Now code deploy not only deploys the code, but it also takes care of monitoring. So after deploying your code, it will keep on monitoring your application and thus will take care of your deployment and monitoring stage of your DevOps pipeline. So now if you see, when you use code commit, it is taking care of your source code management. Code build is taking care of your automated build and automated test. And code deploy is actually taking care of your deployment stage and the monitoring stage. Now that integration of all these tools, you've got an extra web service which is called code pipeline. So as the name suggests, code pipeline helps you create the whole DevOps pipeline by integrating various tools. These tools could be cloud tools, or these tools could also be a third-party tools, for example, Jenkins, Chef, Git, etc. So the main motive of code pipeline is to integrate various tools and create the pipeline so that as soon as developer commits the code, it triggers an automated builds and automates the test process. Then it should get automatically deployed and the whole application should start getting monitored by the associated monitoring tools. Now at each of these steps, you can either use AWS tools or the third-party tools. So here you see, if you go to create a pipeline, then it properly goes and asks you that what would be the source code management tool, what would be the build tool, what would be the deployment tool, and what would be the service roles, etc. So basically it takes care of the whole DevOps pipeline. So basically once your code pipeline is prepared, then all those stages of the DevOps pipeline would be integrated and you will be able to see that where your pipeline is stuck, whether everything is working fine or not, your software development lifecycle is at which stage exactly, all those things you'll be able to see on your code pipeline. But by using code pipeline, you are still creating all those steps and then integrating all those steps. So if you are using third-party tools for various stages of the DevOps pipeline, then code pipeline is a good way to integrate them. But what if you don't want to go into all those hassles? So for that, AWS presents you Code Star tool. So with this Code Star tool, you can just create an environment, tell it in what language you are going to create the application, what kind of ecosystem do you need? Do you want an EC2 instance or do you want to go serverless? What kind of application you want to create? And everything would be taken care of by your Code Star so that you concentrate on your application code and the infrastructure would be taken care of by AWS. So Code Star is not available in all the regions. So I'm going to select the North Virginia region. And here you can see that Code Star helps you develop, build, and deploy applications on AWS very fast and very easy. So on the first stage itself, it asks you what kind of application you want to create, what kind of programming language you are going to use, and what kind of infrastructure you are planning to use. So whether it would be Lambda or it would be EC2 instance, or whether you are going to use Elastic Beanstalk. So you just need to select what kind of application and what kind of infrastructure you are going to use. Rest everything would be taken care of by your Code Star. It will also give you an integrated development environment where you can start writing code, and everything from source code management to build automation to deployment and finally monitoring, everything would be taken care of by this one service alone, which is Code Star. Of course, in the backend, it will be using tools like code commit, code build, code deploy, etc. But you don't have to integrate it. Code Star would be doing it on your behalf. So this is a pretty cool service which can be used by developers to start creating your application, and within 10 minutes of creating an application, you will be able to build it, deploy it, and start monitoring it. So only thing CodeStar is not doing for you is it's not coding on your behalf. But even that part, if you just tell it that what kind of application you are going to create, what programming language you are going to create, then it will also create a neat and clean framework for you so that immediately you can start writing your logic and not the peripheral code which is required. So after these various tools, AWS also provides you Cloud9, which is basically an integrated development environment. So here you can create an environment based on what kind of application you are going to create. So my C9 demo. Go to next step. Configure what kind of environment you need. So I can select an EC2 environment with a T2.micro instance. You can go to the next step then. So once your environment is ready, you will get an IDE where you can start writing your code. So by the time my environment gets created, let's look at the other service, which is called X-Ray. Now X-Ray, as the name suggests, it is basically there for debugging your application. And if you've got distributed computing system, then it also tells you that how various components and various applications are related to each other. So as AWS explains it, it is there for debugging your application. It traces your services, throttles, bottlenecks, and how the services are interrelated to each other. So here you go. Your IDE is ready to be used. It has also created a readme.md file by default. You can go ahead and create a new file. You can see all these other options which will give you the whole integrated development environment. So that's how your Cloud9 works. So now you can see that AWS provides you not only one way of integrating your DevOps pipeline, but multiple ways. You've got CodeStar, you've got Code Pipeline, you've got individual developer tools which can automate the whole DevOps pipeline. For example, code commit, code build, and code deploy together. And separately, you've got Cloud9 for doing your development activity and X-Ray for debugging your code. So by using all these developer tools, a developer now can concentrate on the application logic of the code rather than fretting about the infrastructure for deployment, for build automation, and for monitoring, etc. So that's all we have in the developer tools. If you've got any question, any queries, please put it in our discussion box and we'll get back to you. So see you soon in the next video. Thank you for watching.